So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
Uh, Now we're only doing this particular episode of the podcast because I've had a curiosity of wanting to see the new quote unquote Michael Bay version of the Ninja Turtles, which we had heard about for a while because very early on, before the movie even came out, there was a news story that came out that they were changing the origin for the movie, that instead of being mutant teenagers, they were now aliens, which just sounded kind of stupid. And they even bring it up in the movie, like someone asks, like, "But so, like, are they aliens?" And April just turns and goes, "No, that would be stupid." Which I, did think was kind of funny. But overall, okay, so before we get to our discussion about the movie, which I imagine, Eddie, you have not seen.
I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I'm kind of leery of it because, well,
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the trailer probably really didn't help either.
No,
Um,
no, it didn't.
so before we get to my thoughts on the movie, let's do a little retrospecting history. I imagine probably the first time you saw the Turtles, kind of like I did, was probably from the original animated TV series.
Yeah, from the 80s, yep.
Yep, started in 1987.
Yep.
I remember there was a promo trailer that I saw before, like, some cartoon that we rented as kids, which made us go, "Oh man, that looks so awesome!" And for anybody who's curious, the first season does still hold up. It's only about like 5 episodes on one DVD. That's still pretty good. It's still pretty funny. It's got some good action in it.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah. It's definitely better than what it became eventually.
Yeah. I know there are some later episodes that are still at least funny with what they do, but if you're looking for any sort of action or anything like that, there's really none of that. Namely because of, violence aimed at children is bad, and it's like it really wasn't that violent, and they were fighting robots, but whatever.
Yeah. It was the simple fact that they were actually fighting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which everybody really had a problem with in the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
And
A bunch of parents groups was like, "Won't someone think of the children?"
fuck the children. But but the original incarnation, which I came into a little while after, during the cartoon series, was of course the original comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And they were released, or at least available in some form, as I forget what it's called right now. It escapes me. Graphic novels,
Yeah.
kind of in a way. And ostensibly there were only like 4 volumes released, though as I understand it, there were other mini comics done by the same original creators and such. And and is very much a product of its time. The art and some of the writing is very 80s, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still very good. And if you can find it, much like I did, and actually there are volume collections available now in like any bookstore that just takes like all of the original comics and just, kind of slaps them all together in one giant collection along with a few little extras and such things like that. But you should be able to find the original comics, I think, for fairly cheap on Amazon, and hopefully in pretty good condition, especially.
Yeah, those of you who actually have the internet, unlike me.
Yeah. Do you have many bookstores in Kentucky, or?
Oh, not
or is it-
anymore.
Okay. Or
It's like there was a Barnes and Nobles in the mall there in Ashland,
Mm-hmm.
but that went away because ebooks.
Yeah.
Or so they kind of like, "Oh, we're putting everything on ebooks." It's like, fuck yourself, man. Realize most of the people around here can't use ebooks because they don't have a signal.
Yeah. What's even kind of worse
I mean,
is
we do,
that
not to get it wrong, we do have bookstores, but it's mostly Christian bookstores.
uh,
So,
uh,
unless you're
and
really into the Bible.
yeah, and whatever books that like Walmart or Kmart is probably selling in their in this tiny little corner area,
Yeah.
especially I'm sure.
And
Yeah,
very rarely will they actually have any comics.
yeah, yeah. But also, at one point, a couple of years ago, the comic series actually got rebooted by one of the creators, and they took a lot of what they had, story and character wise from both the graphic novels and the original cartoon series, and blended it together. And I got like the first good amount of the rebooted comic, and it's really good, actually. Uh, has a
Oh,
few different little twists and turns, but still a lot of the same relations. But it was really good. So, so
oh,
those are very highly recommended if you
I
can
think,
find them.
and I'm not 100% certain of this, but I think I saw an interview with one of the original creators, and he actually hated the animated cartoon
Well, yeah,
because they
yeah.
kind of crapped all over his creation.
Well, yeah. And I know you told me a story about how like they kind of wish that they had kept the rights.
Yeah.
Uh, Well, and I mean, I think they obviously they still kind of have the rights if one of the original creators is doing the rebooted comic series.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, from the original first comic, when it was created, it was originally created as purely a parody kind of these other popular 80s comics that were going on at the time,
Hmm.
which I briefly talk about in a video I did, shameless plug here, of the Toilet Reviews video series that I started doing. The very first episode was on the Ninja Turtles comics. So,
Yeah. Shameless plug.
yes. Um, which brings us into the movies, which the very first one was done in 1990 and was very much a combination again of the graphic novels and of the cartoon series, but was
More of the
still
graphic
pretty
novel
adult.
than the cartoon series.
Well, yeah, just in terms of April, being a news reporter, because in the comics she wasn't a news reporter; she was a tech,
Yeah.
basically. And like there was like no news organization of any kind that was following the turtles around and recording them or anything like that.
Yeah.
And
Because they're ninjas. They're supposed to stay in the shadows, not, hey, look, a camera.
well, and they weren't like that either. It just sort of became like that.
Yeah, it kind of became like that as the animated show went on.
Yeah. Well, and and to be fair, like it did become a plot point because near the end of the very first season, the turtles were thought of as an enemy, and the turtles realized, like, well, if we don't want these people, to hate us or be afraid of us or try and kill us, we should obviously, put it out there that hey, we're not bad guys. And so that was
We're
the
actually
reason
trying to
why they
save
did
your
that.
asses.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
at least that was plot relative.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the movie.
Yeah, and the very first movie, I don't remember if I did see it in the movie theater when it first came out. I probably did because I was a huge turtle fan when I was a kid. And I watched it again recently. It still holds up with a few little problems, but but those are kind of minor.
Yeah.
It's still a very good movie with some very good acting, some very good effects, from the turtle costumes and then the animatronics, which were done by Jim Henson Company,
Hmm.
and some really good um, fight choreography, and and of course, the Shredder, he looks great, and
He looks kind of intimidating, like he should.
oh yeah, and just a very good all around movie. It's a very truncated version of like the first 4 comics. Really, it's really the first and then the last comic, pretty much. In what they do, plot wise and what happens, with a few minor differences, of course.
Yeah.
But watching it again recently, it's very good. The things that I think are a tad silly are sometimes when some of the turtles are talking and they have to articulate their movement, how sometimes they'll be doing gangster movements from time to time with
Well,
some
yeah,
of their hands.
it was like 1990.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and that's kind of annoying. It's like, oh Jesus, I really wish they'd stop doing that. Uh, and like from time to time, I'm trying to, like, I don't have a lot of nitpicky problems with it. And like anything like that is like, oh, who really cares about that? Like that really doesn't matter. Uh, but I mean, overall, it's a damn good movie and still holds up.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too overly silly or anything like that. I mean, it does the job and it does it right.
The only complaint I got about it is mostly just I can't find it anywhere. Not without it being packaged with Ninja Turtles 2 and free.
Yeah, that's the same thing with the Blu-ray. If you want the Blu-ray, you have to buy the other movies on Blu-ray as well. And I mean, I will say, 2, and I haven't seen 2 in quite a few years, nor have I seen 3, or like any of the other movies aside from the most recent one.
Yeah.
And I'll say 2 is okay. It's certainly a big step down from the first one, mostly because they toned down a lot of what they did in the first one, so it's not so adult.
Yeah,
but really,
and the
when you
whole
think about
thing of Shredder somehow survived being crushed by a garbage crusher.
who cares about that? Because I do think, well, like, I think it's part of a plot. Like his face got kind of extra fucked up from it. How he survived, like they don't really explain, but it's like,
Still, he was in a garbage crusher.
Well, and it was either that or like, what, like, well, and like I know the Turtles have a lot of other villains, not so many from the comics, mind you. But it was either that or who knows what other random villain they would have pulled out of their ass like they did for the third. So I'll take the Shredder again over what they did in the
like,
third.
yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I would have just liked them to actually explain, like, how the hell did he survive? Because not only did he get thrown into the garbage crusher, Casey Jones flipped it on.
Yeah. I know my brother had a theory where he said he probably like climbed like underneath like all the rest of the garbage so he wouldn't get completely crushed or something like that. And it's like,
it's still something that they should have explained.
Yeah. But like the real problems with the second one, and really when you think about it, the first one is pretty tame, by today's standards.
Yeah, but early 90s, and this is supposed to be like, everybody kind of remembers the kid-friendly cartoon thing, so, yeah.
Yeah. Like there's, the fact that, oh, well, the Turtles, like, whenever they get into a fight, they're not using their weapons. But they do, still go pretty hand to hand, and then the rest of the time they're using, props. Like, hey, like, I'm going to take all these guys out with a yo-yo. I'm going to beat this guy up with a slab of meat, or something like that, where, it's more kid-friendly.
It's like, really? You got perfectly good weapons. Why are you beating the guy up with a yo-yo?
Because that would just be too dangerous. Because he could really hurt him.
Yeah, historically, the yo-yo is actually a weapon, so...
Yes, true. Although I don't remember when was the last time that a slab of meat was ever actually used as a weapon, according to history.
Yeah.
But, and this was also the introduction of the new villains, Toka and Razar.
Yeah. infant mutant things.
Yeah. I didn't really have too much of a problem with that, but again, I haven't seen this movie for quite a few years
I've
now.
caught snippets of it on TV.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the whole Tokar and Razar thing was kind of silly.
Yeah. And the whole TGRI thing. And in case you're wondering, they changed the name of the chemical company who apparently made the U's, who made the Turtles and Splinter, basically.
Mhm.
Uh, a few people who talk about this have actually wondered, like, why did you change the name? Because the original name from the comic book was TCRI, not TGRI. Like, they changed, like, one letter. It's like, why did you have to do that? But whatever.
So that we didn't have to pay the guys who did the car.
Who knows, really?
And
Uh,
we were all high on weed when we fought that up, okay?
we were creatively bankrupt, alright? Leave me alone. But probably the dumbest thing about Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, and I think you know what I'm talking about, the Vanilla Ice concert that they just happened to bust into, that the
Oh,
Foot
yeah, with the whole
Clan's...
ninja rap thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cheesy elements of the 90s that, you know, oh, good God. Go, Ninja, go, Ninja, go! Oh, man. So bad. So bad.
Oh, my
Um,
eyes. Ah, and my
and,
ears. Ah, they're getting me from both ends.
and, and I mean, again, I haven't seen the movie in quite a few years, so I don't know what my thoughts on it would be now. I will say, in fact, going back to the first movie, which I have on DVD, um, there's like a brief extra thing where it's like, oh, hey, read the character bios, and it's, oh God, is it fucking cheesy, because it's, you know, kind of shit that's like taken, you know, from like the later movies. And what's kind of worse is that the image clips that they use for the characters for the bios, and bear in mind, this is for the first movie, the character clips are taken from the other later movies, are taken from like 2 and 3. And it's like,
Ah,
oh, thank you so fucking much for using the worst effects for these characters as opposed to using, you know, the good effects from the first movie.
yeah, when they actually gave a shit.
Yeah. Which brings us to the third movie. Again, I haven't seen this since I owned it on VHS, but I know, like, later on, I began to realize and think, you know, this movie is shit. And it is.
Well, let's see. We've kind of done a Dark Dane, and then we kind of did a ninja thing. I know. Let's go time traveling.
You know, and that's fine. You know, because one of the video games did that. And they,
Yeah.
you know, had fun with it. But
Yeah,
what
but they
was...
didn't in that. They just...
But what's so bad about it, and what's so creatively bankrupt about it, is that they use these generic villains that have no relation to the Turtles from the comics or the TV series or anything like that. Like, characters they just pull right out of their ass and are so generically evil. Like, you got a random samurai lord, and then you have a random pirate dude.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the Turtles from the cartoon series have plenty of other villains. Hell, you could have done Krang. You could have done Bebop and Rocksteady. You
Hey,
could have
Crane would have
done...
actually been interesting to see at that time.
Yeah.
A live-action version of Crane.
Hell, you could have done the Rat King.
Oh, yeah.
You could have done the Mousers storyline. Hell, you could have done anything from the cartoon series, and that would have been better than this. But it wasn't just that. It was like... But... And it wasn't just that. It was... The effects got worse. And they weren't done by Jim Henson this time. They were done by a completely random studio, and the effects look terrible.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, the Splinter uh, uh, animatronic model or puppet, like, I guess supposedly like it wasn't finished or anything like that because they don't show like the whole model. Like every time they show him, it's only like half of his upper body, and the rest of him is hidden, behind some furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks like crap. And the animatronics, for whenever they're talking, look very
Not
I
not well.
like I don't know how to properly describe it. Like almost kind of like they're glitching out like while they're talking is like the best way that I can describe it. Like it looks like kind of fidgety.
Like in you watch like an old school Godzilla movie and you see the guys talking, their mouths don't quite fit what they're saying.
Yeah,
And
kind
just
of. Kind of. Uh, and the jokes and the sense of humor are bad.
oh yeah, especially when
Really
they
bad.
gave the pirate guy willies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wet willies. I mean, it's like really.
Yeah. That was a running gag, like all throughout.
hmm
I. I mean, I know they did that like 2 times, and then he did it to himself as a final capper. Uh, and again, I haven't seen it since I owned it on VHS. And I gave it away to a friend of mine.
That
Glad
poor
I don't
friend.
own it anymore. It's like, because I remember like even at the time, my brother and sister they hated it, and I couldn't quite understand why. And then many, many, many years later, when I thought about it, realized
As
like,
you got older and
wait,
wiser.
yeah, that movie did suck. It was terrible. And there was another animated movie that I've seen parts of, not all of. I don't like the way the art looks for the most part, and from everything I've seen and heard, it doesn't look very good, especially just because of how the characters. And I understand like, oh, this is supposed to be a much later on timeline that this takes place in, but like Leo's gone on like a sort of vision quest to become a better leader. It's like, how do you become a better leader by going thousands of miles away from your family to some random butt fuck jungle?
Yeah, and then when he like comes back, he's actually not much of a better leader. Raphael was actually a much better leader just because he was doing shit.
Yeah, and Raphael became a costumed vigilante.
Yeah.
Uh, Michelangelo. What did Michelangelo do? I don't
I
remember.
think he was like doing like party clown stuff.
Ugh. And Donatello, he was an internet guy because hey, the internet's a big thing now, and we need to call attention to that. And I didn't care for Mako doing the voice of Splinter. It just didn't work for me.
And it just didn't.
Hmm.
I like Mako as an actor. He's done a lot of good stuff.
Hmm.
Just not in that one.
Yeah, and I've seen a few other movies that he's been in. I finally, well, hell, I own the DVD of Conan that has the first 2 Conan movies
hmm
on it. The first one, while at times a bit slow, is at least actually a pretty good movie. Uh, I mean, Mako is in both, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Like the same character.
Yeah, and he's good in
Yeah.
it. I also saw the movie Sidekicks that he was in,
hmm
where it was kid fantasizes about Chuck Norris and about being a badass because he's a little wimpy kid
With
who has
asthma.
asthma. Yeah. Uh, yeah, it was okay. I mean, he was like a karate teacher, and he helps the kid and
Yeah,
all of
well,
that.
short
Uh,
order cook and basically like taught the kid kung fu and whatnot.
yeah, because every Asian guy just
Knows
happens to
martial
know
arts.
kung fu.
Now.
Uh, but yeah, that movie, which I think was just called TMNT, uh, eh, eh, not really my cup of tea, but probably a step up from the third movie.
That wouldn't take much.
Yeah. And then we get to Michael Bay's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Alright. Now, obviously, in case you couldn't tell, I didn't hate this movie, but I didn't really like it all that much either. Like, I will say, it's not a terrible movie, but it's not really a very good movie either. It's got some okay aspects to it. Megan Fox's April, you could have gotten a better actress. But she's not terrible, but she's not very good in it either.
Now, grant you, I haven't seen Jennifer's Body, which is like the only horror movie I think she's done.
Me either.
Yeah, but I've heard she's good in that one, but...
You know what's kind of distracting to me, especially about this movie, is that she looks like she's had some work done to her face. And maybe she hasn't, but like she looks very different from the first Transformers movie to here. But who cares? The one good and actually interesting aspect about it is that they brought in the character Vern. Her camera guy. Who's played by I forget the guy's name. Sadly, let me pull up the Ninja Turtle movie Wikipedia. Hold on, I'll edit this. So
more or less.
Skype. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2014 film. Blah 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 blah. It was Will Arnett who's playing Vernon, and and typically in a Michael Bay sort of movie like this, he'd be the overly flirty douchebag pig.
Wasn't this, huh?
well, he is attracted to April, but he's still but he's obviously still a good guy. Who's just trying to do the right thing.
He's a professional.
Yeah. And like he actually, kind of tries to help her out. And in fact, saves her life at the end of the movie and kind of sacrifices his own in order to do it. And it's like, ooh, character.
Yeah.
But really,
that's unusual for a Michael Bay movie.
But really, he's the only interesting, good character like all throughout the movie. Not even the turtles are good or interesting.
Yeah, I've heard they're basically kind of side characters in their own movie again. Yeah,
and they're cliches.
Oh, goody!
Michelangelo, he's, thankfully, at least, I would have thought Michelangelo was going to be, the token black character, but thankfully he's not. He's just very kiddie, obviously very young teenager who is like all in love with April.
Of course.
Raphael. Oh God, I don't know. He's very badass cliche. Like literally, always has a toothpick in his mouth, has sunglasses always above his eyes that are resting on his bandana. And all throughout this movie, when I first saw Raphael, I had a hard time telling if that was him because his bandana colors were always off. Like, I know they were meant to be red, but they don't look red. They look kind of purplish. So I kept thinking, is that Donatello? Because Donatellos are, a dark purple, and then Raph's, they're not, like, blood red. They're, like, a sort of off red, and it was really weird. Everybody else's colors are fine, and then, like, everybody has to have, like, these odd, stupid trinkets hanging on them that's meant to, obviously, give them character, like Donatello. Oh, he's the nerd! So, he has glasses with the tape around the middle of it to indicate that, hey, he's a nerd. And he's got tech just hanging off of him, like he's got like these extra goggles on his head that he uses for infrared and scanning all the fucking time.
Odd.
And Leo doesn't really have a character other than he's the leader.
He's just kind of there.
And Splinter is here, and it's like nobody really has any character except for maybe the so-called stereotype.
Yeah.
The Shredder, when he gets his armor, he becomes a fucking transformer.
Oh, so he wasn't a robot.
No.
Kind of what I thought he would be in the trailer.
The suit is robotic, though, but he is wearing it.
Okay, so it's an actual person inside this thing.
Not that you could fucking tell, because I'm sure it's probably still just an effect.
Yeah.
I bet. More than likely, because the Turtles are just an effect, who have a voice behind them. I don't know who does the voices for them, and I don't care, because they had really no character. There were a lot of moments where it was pretty hard for me to not fast forward through, the more embarrassing moments, which all come from April, who is frantically trying to tell her boss, who's inexplicably played by Whoopi Goldberg, which is fine. She doesn't do a terrible job or anything like that. And she's, just being displayed as a nut, when she's trying to explain, these turtles who I knew as a child because my father, who was a lab technician, I knew these turtles from when I was a kid, and now they're, over 6 feet tall, and the turtles are huge, too. They are, just gargantuan turtles, as opposed to being, normal human size.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like a nutcase trying to explain something.
Yeah, and that's, what she does when she, is attempting to explain this, and it's like, oh god, you're an idiot. And she rightfully gets fired, too, when she's, because she dragged her boss in, to explain all this to her, and her boss is just like,
are you nuts?
Okay. And then she justifiably fires her. And the Turtles, yeah, they are side characters in their own damn movie. Again, just like what happened with the Transformers.
Yeah.
And what I think bothers me the most is that when they have their fight with the Shredder, they get the shit kicked out of them. Utterly. Like they have no chance against him. He just wipes the floor with them. Now, to be fair, when they fought him in the very first movie, he kicked the shit out of them, but that was the first time that they fought him. And yeah, the Shredder is supposed to be a really, really good fighter.
Mm-hmm.
But,
supposed to be a badass ninja.
Yeah. But there were even points where they were kind of getting the better of him.
Well, yeah, I think Leonardo even wounded him on his shoulder at one point. So
he did.
They were kind of holding their own a little bit.
Yeah. In this, there's none of that. None of that. Shredder just wipes the floor with them. And it's like, and I suppose, yeah, you could say, it's their first time. First time they fight him, it's Raph fighting him one-on-one. Raph just gets his ass kicked. Utterly. And it's embarrassing, how badly he gets the shit kicked out of him. And, he has, this quote-unquote, badass line when, Shredder sees April and he's gonna go after her, and Raph, gets up and runs after her and says, "Focus on me!" And then Shredder, barely turns and just, smacks him away from him. It's like, that's not how you do that. At all. If anything, again, that's just embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then
you're just kind of embarrassing yourself at this point now, man.
And then even when all four of them are trying to fight him together, he just lightly smacks them away, and they're nothing to him. And, Yeah, I mean, that's the movie in a nutshell. I mean, it's nothing too special, but I mean, it did very well in the box office, which was a little disappointing.
Yeah, well, so did all three of the Transformer movies.
I don't know how well the fourth one did.
I think it did well in the box office too,
Yeah.
which is
Uh,
sad.
well, from what I understand, I think the fourth one is a little bit better, but I really don't have any interest in trying to watch them because I
Yeah,
mean, I hated the second one so much,
yeah.
and from my, and from what I understand about the third, it's exactly like the second one, probably just not as racist, and probably not as long as the second one was. But overall, this movie, if I had to give it a rating, I'd say it's a 6 out of 10. It's just kind of average.
It's just, it's kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not very good either.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, and like there were some moments where I had to pause it and just be like, "Oh dear God," and then try and compose myself and then continue. And again, there were probably about 3 moments where I so badly wanted to fast forward, but I said, "No, no, 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 you can't do that. You have to watch all of this." Because like if you're gonna give a proper critique of a movie, you shouldn't skip scenes. You should watch the whole.
No matter how bad
movie.
the scenes are.
Yeah, well, and like that's part of being a quote unquote critic, which I don't. I don't know if I can consider myself a proper critic or anything like that. But if you want to be professional, you should try to at least watch the whole thing, and then give a proper, synopsis of it. So, but I mean, I kind of hope that they don't do another one. Like a lot of the action scenes that they did were pretty frenetic and kind of hard to follow. Because the camera's trying to zip around all over the place, and the fact that the turtles are CG is a little blurry. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of hard to follow, and then there are a lot of bad lines, a lot of which are uttered by the turtles. Yeah. I mean, I would say at best rent it, and get your own opinion of it. Yeah, it's there. It exists. It's not very good. Yeah.
Yeah. What more can I say? I didn't like it.
There was an interesting bit when the movie first started where it had some cool animations for a little bit of the origin, which they go into a little bit more later as they do, which is a little bit different, but it's still kind of the same. Only in that April knew the turtles when they were little, and she apparently saved them from said fire that set them free. It's not an overly complicated plot. It's pretty damn cliched and typical.
Yep.
Where the big rich business guy who seems like a good guy, turns out he's actually a bad guy who's working for the Shredder, and
guess what?
Yeah.
He's evil.
yeah, yeah. And like they don't try to do like any clever twist or anything like that. Like after he talks to April, like some odd minutes later, he goes and meets up with Shredder, and it's like, oh, okay, thanks for.
He's
Just
evil. And it's like, yeah, don't, leave us hanging, make us think that it's like, oh, okay, he's actually good, and then like some odd years later, find out like, nope.
Nope, he was
or
working
anything
his
like
own.
that.
He was working his own nefarious evil plan. Nope, no, it's not anything too complicated or interesting like that. Like again, like the only good, interesting character is.
The camera guy.
Will Arnett's Vernon. He's the only good, interesting character. And at the end of the movie, the turtles act, and I will say, I mean, it was obviously an accident. It wasn't intentional, as like a few other reviewers have talked about. As saying like, dude, like they blew up his car. Like it was an accident.
Get over it, man.
Even they admitted it. But yeah, like, he gets his new car blown up. It's like, yeah, like, that's really shitty.
It's like, that sucks, but
yeah,
get over it.
and like, he didn't really even get his date with April, which he had, really been trying to do. And to be fair, like, he was actually, being really, cool and nice about it. Like, hey, like, I know you're probably not, the fancy restaurant type, but I got a good friend who owns this really nice place downtown. I was thinking, we could go and, and have something to eat. Maybe just something light, it's fine.
Yeah.
But,
if you want to, no, rush around.
It was, like, very, very nervous guy, but trying to be cool. And again, like, he's the only good character / actor, like, all throughout this whole movie. So,
yeah.
But so I think overall those are my thoughts on the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle. I mean, he didn't direct it. I mean, he produced it, but it might as well have been directed by him.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thing. It's like, still, his name's attached.
Yeah. Well, and like, the director who did this, as I understand it, a lot of his other movies have not been anything too inspired. Let me take a look at Darkness Falls, Rings, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, The Killing Room, Battle Los Angeles, Wrath of the Titans, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And he also did the sequel to Clash of the Titans.
Which was Wrath of the Titans.
Yeah. As I understand it, like, he's, he just kind of follows a particular style. Like, he has, like, no style of his own, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's very evident here, because it just feels, and I mean, there are Transformer sound effects in here during some of the fight scenes.
Really?
The whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, and it's like, this isn't Transformers! This is Ninja Turtles! What the fuck? But yeah. Alright, everybody, those are going to be our thoughts on the Ninja Turtles history and kind of my review of the latest movie. Please let us know what you guys think. What are your guys' thoughts, in fact, on the Turtles? Comic books, TV series, movies, all that good stuff. And did you guys see the new movie? What did you guys think? Did you like it? Did you think it was okay? Did you hate it? Whatever. Do you think this made you...
Just watch us! Please, just watch us!
Please? Like, let me ask you something. I mean, if you could have rented this and watched it as well, do you think you would have, or probably not, Andy?
I probably would have, just out of sheer curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely wouldn't have paid money to go see it.
well, yeah. I mean, me either. I mean, unless I was doing this for a living and I felt obligated to.
Yeah.
But if anything, I would say, like, I'm gonna wait till this comes out on video and I'll rent it. It's like, I don't want to spend $6 to go to a movie theater. Though, you kind of seem to pay just about that much for a new movie rental these days, anyway. So, it's like paying for a matinee ticket.
Yeah.
Which is a tad ridiculous. Well, alright, everybody, we are going to cut this short. This was the Other People discussion on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Hope that you guys liked. Please let us know what you guys think, and we will see you next time. Ciao!
Goodbye, people.
Power.